Welcome back, beautiful people. Here for another episode of Random Thoughts, Some Useful, where we dive into real, raw conversations and inspire growth and healing. I'm your host, Jen of Apothecaring Jen, and today we are back for another bestie session, continuing our discussion over narcissistic abuse recovery with Regina Pereira of Regina Roche Consulting. We know firsthand how overwhelming and isolating it can be, but today we're here to talk about the journey of healing, the hard-earned lessons, and the coping skills we've used to rebuild our confidence and reclaim our lives. Whether you're just starting your recovery or have been on this path for a while, we hope this conversation offers support, comfort, and a reminder that you are not alone. Let's get into it. We're back. Welcome to another episode of the Bestie Sessions. I'm back with my best friend, Regina Pereira, LPC of Regina Roche Consulting. Today, we are continuing our discussion about narcissistic abuse recovery and getting kind of a deep dive into coping skills, things that we can do right now to kind of help us get through. Well, really, honestly, what started it was the racing thoughts, and talking about PTSD and how there are multiple forms of PTSD. Not necessarily, when a lot of times when we think about it, we think of it being primarily just, a soldier that's been to war, or a battered woman, or something like that. When they're all different forms of abuse, and really it's just comes down to trauma and how we process that. I am thinking. Can you enlighten us?
That would be correct.
Okay.
That would be absolutely correct. I mean, carry on.
No, I mean that was we were just having the conversation after our last discussion about PTSD and about those racing thoughts and how difficult they can be sometimes to deal with, not just on a daily basis, sometimes a moment by moment basis. I'm speaking from experience. I've had multiple traumatic experiences in my life, and even just a relationship that he's still alive and I had to walk away from for my safety. And so mourning someone that's still alive, and just how intrusive that over and over and over again loop of
rumination is what you're describing. In our society, we do not know how to self-regulate. We don't know how to connect to ourselves. We don't know what to do with the emotion that we feel. And all of that is quite confusing. You add narcissistic abuse from a narcissistic lover, and you've got a cocktail of really not great stuff. Usually the folks that are attracted to narcissists are those who are much more codependent. And so they are they look for projects. They don't know that they're looking for projects.
Right.
But they are attracted to the projects. And generally, dad was narcissistic. Because dads and daughters are very bonded. Moms and sons are very bonded. And so it's a trauma response. You're absolutely right. And the post-traumatic stress is real. I don't know if it'd be a disorder yet, but if you were harmed like you were in the relationship, then yes, there is no doubt about it that it would be post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And that includes the flashbacks, the nightmares, the ruminations, the racing thoughts, all of that. So my first thing to address in those situations is called stop action. And here's the thing, bottom line, you have to become aware of you. You have to start thinking about thinking, becoming the observer of your own thoughts in order to begin to gain control over them again. It is your subconscious mind reliving old trauma as if you're going through it still or again, and it doesn't know the difference. If you have a memory of being harmed in some way, traumatized in some way when you're 3 years old, your body remembers that. It's stored in your cells. And if you're remembering that, your autonomic nervous system is believing that it's happening,
Right.
goes into fight, flight, or freeze, and thinks you're dying. In order to stop,
as if you were.
Exactly,
Doesn't know the difference.
It does not know the difference, and we need that mechanism. And so, what your job is in those moments is to catch that. Like, there I go again with those thoughts. Mm-hmm. I do not want to think that way any longer. Mm-hmm. Let it go. Change your energy. Get grateful. Go for a walk. Take a shower. Do something to shift your energy. Mm-hmm. Have a journal available. Those are magnificent. And that takes a lot of practice. But stop action is the first technique that I talk about in these conversations because it is the most critical one. You can't start taking better care of yourself if you don't know what you want. So the only way to understand you better and to know what you want is to get to know you. And that means you've got to increase your self-awareness.
So stop action is, you said, stop and think about your thoughts? That's
when you become aware of a thought dynamic that you do not appreciate, that does not serve you, you have to stop yourself from having that thought. And one way to do that is to say to the thought, I choose not to think this way anymore, and let it go.
Okay.
And so it's that awareness piece where you catch those thoughts. And you may get, sucked back into the vacuum of all of that. And down the rabbit hole you go with those thoughts again. And it's happening subconsciously because that's what your brain's addicted to. Your brain gets addicted to the thoughts that you have. And so until you change the chemistry, that's what your brain is going to do. So it might be that it happens for another 15 minutes. You're like, oh yeah, there it is again. Yeah, I choose not to think that way anymore. And the more you do that, the more practice you get, the better you get at controlling that, at seeing that, catching it. Eventually, you become in alignment with your truth in the oneness, and that goes away. Oh, that's the end goal.
Okay, so I heard eventually you get good at that. So say somebody's in your office and they're in critical state, what are you going to teach them right then? Is there anything we can do now that we can get good at right away?
Absolutely. There's a bunch.
Okay.
But let me start with one of the most simplest, and that is simply grounding. If you can take your shoes off and get to a piece of ground with grass, that is one of the quickest ways. Take a nice, big, deep, slow breath with your feet planted on top of the grass and set the intention of grounding and centering yourself. If someone was here in my office and they were having a panic attack, which has happened a handful of times, but I will tell you only a handful of times. It's interesting. Most of people's panic happens between sessions. But when their self-care goes to heck. So I will ask them, name me 5 things that you can see in the room. And they will. Name me 4 things that you can touch and describe their texture. So they're going to touch their clothes, they're going to touch the chair, they're going to touch a pillow, they're going to touch something in their purse or their glasses or something. Okay, so what's 3 things you can hear? And generally you can hear the ticking of the clock, air conditioning running, car driving by, whatever they hear. Maybe they don't hear 3 things, and that's okay. What are 2 things that you can smell? Is there 2 things you can smell? Anything come to mind? Or maybe you hand them a Kleenex with lavender on it. What does the air smell like versus what does this smell like? Then 1 thing you can taste. Did you have coffee or what did you drink or eat or drink before you came that you can still taste in your mouth? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But by the time they have done all of that, they're back in the moment with you and they're back in the present and they're in their body. And the reason for that, when a person goes into panic, It is their amygdala that's hijacking the brain. The amygdala is what's in charge of your responses and your reactions. And so when you go into panic, the amygdala has your brain controlled. Your frontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, turns completely off. So the moment that you stop and start looking for 5 things in the room, you have turned the thinking brain back on. And then that shuts the amygdala down instantly. So that's one technique that can be used anywhere, anytime, anyway. As a matter of fact, one of my clients came into session one day, and she was like, I am so grateful for that grounding technique because it kept me from losing my mind. She said, I was at the ball game, and we were, everybody was about to get up and leave and trickle out of there. And I lost sight of my kiddo for several seconds. I couldn't see where he went. And I started naming 5 things I could see, touching 4 things and listening for 3 things and, smelling things and tasting things. And that's what kept her from losing her mind in the bleachers.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. I'm glad. Thank you for offering that. Because I think, the whole idea is if you, don't have time for one, you can reach here for this one, or maybe this doesn't work. Maybe you've been doing this every single day. I know there was a point where I got tired. I got irritated with meditation. I'd meditated all day long every day for months, and I was like, okay, I need a break from meditation today.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of comes to mind is, there are all these different visualizations that we can walk through and teach and this kind of thing, but I've gotten to a place where there was a video, Christina Lopes, I think is her name. It's been a while since I've really followed her, but she talks a lot about being an empath and, understanding that, how to work with it and how to, live happily being an empath, those kinds of things that can be extremely difficult especially when you don't know, you don't have a label for it. You don't realize that there are other people out there that struggle with the same types of things. So anyway, she has a video on YouTube somewhere that talks about being an alchemist, and she walks you through a visualization of how to diffuse the energy of the room or just yourself, or but basically after a while of getting good at going through the visualization and the technique, and now I've gotten it down to I can just say one word and which is diffuse, and it immediately just, my mind goes through just a play. It's like it presses play and it goes through the visualization without even having to really work on it. You know what I mean? And it immediately will diffuse the energy of the situation, whether I'm excited and need to calm down, or there's something going on in the environment that needs it, or somebody around me, or those kind of things. I mean, even with dogs, I've used the same thing. You know what I mean?
Excellent.
Or in,
that's excellent.
conversations that I've walked into that are heated or those kind of things. So that has been a huge tool of being able, just understanding who I am for the most part has been honestly the biggest of all of it.
It's the key to the universe.
Yeah. Just understanding what kind of thoughts I'm having, why I'm having them, like you said earlier, just really being able to step outside and assess what's going on.
And what you described exemplifies what we've been talking about perfectly. In that, when you practice something like that, noticing something or visualizing something, having something that you do when you find yourself in a panic or something, that's exactly what happens. Your body responds because you've taught your body what it feels like to calm down before you calm down.
There you go.
And you build muscle memory, and you're creating a new neural network that's much more cohesive, and that's where the healing happens.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I love it.
That leads me to want to talk about head-heart cohesion.
Yeah, let's talk about
So this is one of my TikToks. Takes you through, it's a 3-minute TikTok, takes you through the entire process. If anyone is interested and wants to look that up and revisit that information, look for the TikTok in my history that has over 1,400 likes. And it's the biggest one I have. That's the TikTok that talks about it. But here's what that TikTok says. Every human being is born with 40,000 sensory neurite cells in the heart. And what that translates to quite literally is that you have a miniature heart brain or miniature brain in the middle of your heart. And we refer to that as your heart brain. And so when you get grateful, you put your left hand on your heart because that's the best connection. Left hand on the heart and begin to think of the things that you're grateful for. Your brain chemistry begins to produce serotonin and dopamine and calms you down. As you do that, you're creating new neural pathways, leading to those new neuro connections that will build that network for you. So, and it leads to healing. I mean, it's everything. It's beautiful. So, as you focus on the things that you're grateful for a full 5 minutes, put your hand on your heart for a full 5 minutes, and just think of the things that you're grateful for, even if it's just one thing. Then after 5 minutes, there's going to be a release of over 1,300 biochemical processes that are healing and anti-aging hormones. Those healing and anti-aging hormones stay circulating in your system for 6+ hours in the body. And this information comes scientifically proven. It's evidence-based by the folks at heartmath.com. If you're interested in reading more about that, you certainly could there. But it's a powerful healing modality. But if you practice this a couple of times a day, and it's not a meditative process, if you can safely drive with one hand, putting your left hand on your heart, this is something that you can do on your way somewhere driving. I do head-heart cohesion before I go to the doctor's office. I practice head-heart cohesion before I'm going to have a difficult conversation with someone. I use head-heart cohesion when I'm angry or when I'm fearful about something. Head-heart cohesion if I can't sleep at night, to get my thoughts to kind of come back to center and calm my body down and get sleepy again.
Great.
So it's a very beneficial technique, but you're going to have to practice it more than once or twice in order to get that muscle memory that you demonstrated in your example.
That's great, though. Yeah. Giving people more, multiple different options on things that they can go to.
Absolutely. And I think that leads us right into a good segue to self-care, which is the most critical piece of this whole process. And, here's what I can tell you. The reason why we get sucked into those kinds of narcissistic relationships is because we are not living for ourselves. We are not living from our truth. And most of the time it's not anyone's fault because it is part of how our system works. And how our system is designed. And quite frankly, and this is a Regina theory, but quite frankly, I think that all of our systems are designed, whether on purpose or not, that's another podcast, very narcissistically, meaning that the systems are all about the survival of the system over people. And then there's this push to control people, have lots of rules. Every year the lawmakers are passing laws right and left. How many laws do you really need? You only need just one, and that is the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated, right?
Right.
But anyway, back to the point. So because of the programming, because of the messages that, that come from our society and our humanity, we as a humanity have become so disconnected from ourselves. So out of touch with the truth of who we are. That is actually indeed what causes ADHD, is the disconnection from self and then trying to make sense of this world by looking for the answer outside of yourself. Constantly distracted because you're constantly looking for the answer. Yeah. So what is the answer? Radical, unconditional self-love. You have to start dropping all of the judgments you have against yourself. And know that for every person you judge, you're judging yourself even harsher. And you're judging other people harsh. And so the judgment does nothing but lend to the energy and frequency of division, of separation. And that's just not what we need. We need love and we need oneness. Mm-hmm. So get reconnected with yourself, and head-heart cohesion can help in the journey of increasing your self-awareness, increasing your experience of your own emotions, and sometimes for the first time. Mm-hmm. Understanding how your body feels those things, understanding the power of your thoughts, and what you focus on is what manifests into your life. But most importantly, it helps you to calm your system down. Studies show utilizing head-heart cohesion lowers depression, lowers anxiety, and boosts your immune system. You can't beat that, and it's 5 minutes and it's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another good technique that I want to bring up is box breathing. Now you can go to YouTube and you can look up, box breathing or breathing techniques and be there for absolute days. And all of them are fine. There's no wrong way to take a nice big deep breath. Generally, you want to do that in through the nose, out through the mouth. That is in accordance with your nervous system, your vagus nerve. And nice and slow. So I teach kids how to draw a box in the air to help them remember and learn how to do this. So that's the whole purpose for drawing the box. So the first line of the box is inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And you do that at least 3 times. Another technique that I like is spaghetti. And that's a game that I made up working with children. I would have a sibling group, for example, get everybody laid out on the floor. And there's, a technique called muscle tension relaxation technique. And when you look that up online, that's going to take you through a series of steps to completely relax the muscles in your body. But children cannot handle, they don't have the attention span to pay attention or stay focused on anything like that. So what I would have them do is to pretend to be uncooked spaghetti. So they'd stiffen up their body from head to toe and hold it there for a few seconds and then relax. Because now we become cooked spaghetti. So uncooked spaghetti, cooked spaghetti, uncooked spaghetti, cooked spaghetti. And I'd have them do that probably 4 times on the heels of a couple of those big breaths. So that's a very powerful one. And that can be one, it works all at the same time, your whole body at the same time. That can be one that you can do from bed if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're having a hard time falling back to sleep. So there's a couple of more techniques there for you. How is this sounding? What are your thoughts about what I've said so far?
Oh, I think it's absolutely great. It's exactly what I had in mind when we started this, was to be able to, on the times where, okay, I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of people in a big crowd and I'm about to go on stage. I don't have the luxury of having the privacy to do head-heart cohesion real quick, or just anything that I can deploy right then, employ, whatever. To get me out of that fight, flight, or freeze type feeling situation, and giving me the confidence that, hey, we're okay, everything's fine. I've had to do this from day one, it seems like. So I've had my whole life to kind of perfect that, whether it be in my personal life or, on the farm growing up with animals and chaos everywhere and kids and caring for my younger brother and sister at a young age, or just growing up with the chaotic neighborhood boys, and boys are chaotic, that kind of thing, and being the only girl stuck in the middle of it, and a lot of my different different jobs throughout my career and that kind of thing, I've always kind of been thrown into a sink or swim, fight or flight type situation, and thankfully, I've thrived for the most part, but again, from training from a very young age, I believe. And a lot of people don't have those skills that they've been perfecting for a very long time. And I think that's why, I have a conversation with my father often about people and the way things are in the world and the reason that we make the decisions that we do. And, ultimately we agree on why people will often turn to poor coping skills, if you will, poor choices. But I know my question is always like, how were they loved? Were they loved well growing up? Did they have a support system? What kind of things had happened in their life? That kind of stuff. Where for him, it's very matter of fact. You either have God in your life or you don't. And if you do, then you don't have any problems. And if you don't, then you have all kinds of problems. And it is very simple. I mean, I feel the exact same way whenever like I just described, just knowing that, we are divine and God's promises are real. And as long as we just believe that, we really don't even have to take time to talk about these coping skills. But it's a long bridge between I'm in fight or flight and what I just said, believing that, I can say one word and everything's fine and we don't have to even worry about it. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's a very long journey.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what I had in mind whenever I talked about, hey, I really feel like we need to, offer coping skills on how to get through the day-to-day type stuff. And when you're in a situation where you don't, like, again, don't have the privacy of being able to deploy things that might take a few minutes to recenter yourself. Grounding, absolutely. I can tell you firsthand that not only helps when it comes to, reducing fight or flight type feelings, but also in just overall healing and again, giving you that confidence that
absolutely,
it's really miraculous how just sticking your feet in the ground and just being intentional, setting the intention that, another thing that I do, I have an internal issue with road rage where it doesn't often, you ride with me. How often does it come out that I've got a road rage problem?
No, it kind of surprises me because I don't see
when I
it.
say that, right? Because I always drive and you don't see that at all. But internally, I feel it. And I don't enjoy those feelings. And so one of the things that I have done is whenever I do set out for whatever trip it is, just saying the intention, I request the most benevolent outcome on this trip or, this conversation or, like you were saying, employing the head-heart cohesion. So saying that has taken kind of the place of that head-heart cohesion demonstrate whatever act, however you say that. Where again, it's another one of those quick things that I can employ to kind of recenter me, get me back in the mind state of being able to manifest positive things rather than the negative things because of our subconscious negative thinking.
And Louise Hay would tell you, that she has laws in her life that she lives by. And so what is it that you want to live by in your life? And I used to have road rage. To the point where I tried to chase someone down one morning. And I had a carload of people.
Oh my goodness, I can't see
And then I thought to myself, Regina Gale, what are you going to do if you catch them? And so after listening to Louise Hay and learning from her, I made the rule that I drive with safe, compassionate, competent drivers.
There you go.
I always have a smooth time of it on the highways and byways. I have an easy on and an easy off. People let me in and I let other people in. And if someone does cut me off, I understand that I have no idea what's going on in that car. Could be a mom who's trying to rush her kid to the hospital. Could be a single mom who, if she's late for work one more day, she's going to get fired.
Right.
You don't know what's going on in other people's lives.
Years ago, I heard too that it could be your guardian angel, like somebody cutting you off, like really like preventing you from a wreck up ahead. Type thing. And that really helped because that was in my early 20s, and that helped a lot with helping with the road rage, like being able to just sit back, along for the ride. Not everyone is intentionally being a jerk to you. Maybe they're freaked out about something or, like you said, have something going on.
Exactly. And I want to circle back to what you said about, you're in the moment, you're ready to step on stage, you're having a panic moment. Dr. Eric Gentry, he's one of the most renowned in his field for trauma work and mental health. And I sat through one of his trainings a couple of years ago, and he was remarkable. One of the skills that he was teaching was self-regulation, real time in the moment. And so he's so passionate about his work that he has provided his entire 3-day training on YouTube for free. Now, you can't get the certifications or credit for watching them, but how glorious is it to go back and watch those videos to be able to remember and learn and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
get the information.
In self-regulation, it's really about keeping yourself grounded in the moment and paying attention to your body. I used to notice that at the end of the day, I was kind of like this, with my shoulders reaching for my ears and just be in tremendous pain. And I chalked it up to, growing older. But no, after I learned that technique, I realized that it was just trauma. What I discovered was, as a clinician, and after 34 years, I have enough lived experience with actual clients in-house who have gone into crisis and presented a critical situation that keeps my nervous system just a little bit scared of every client that walks in the door. Because if that goes down, I've got to be first responder.
Right.
And that can get very intense. So during my work with folks, I would get more and more and more tense. Learning Dr. Eric Gentry's technique of just simply scanning your body. You're in the middle of your presentation or in your conversation. You don't have to skip a beat. You just simply bring yourself back to the moment. You notice your body, notice where your tension is, and then noodle that muscle group. If you notice your neck and shoulders are tight, drop your shoulders and release that tension by pretending that your shoulders have become wet noodles. And you can do that without breaking a stride. You don't have to stop your life to take a little break to go recenter, as you said before.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So it's in the moment, just taking a scan of your body, an assessment of where you are, relaxing those muscle groups, anything that's tight. That alone, just recentering your focus on that type of thought is going to do it.
Yeah,
it's
you're increasing your self-awareness.
You from
yes, that's exactly
that
right.
fight or flight situation that's causing you to.
That's exactly right.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, and so maybe we can link that video for people and below this podcast.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
As well as your TikTok video on the head-heart cohesion. Yeah,
another good idea.
Yeah,
we can do that. All right, so we will get those videos linked below for everyone to check out. Now I'd like to shift a little bit and talk about the importance of self-care and self-love. And I started to mention it earlier, and that is radical, unconditional self-love and regard. You have got to start being the most important person in your own life. Your own do-it-yourself project must be you. Instead of repainting and redoing the bathroom, you're going to redo you. And so that self-awareness piece becomes critical, being able to be much more observant of your own thoughts and more specifically, how those thoughts make you feel, knowing that you are 1,000% in control of those thoughts. And if something is causing you to feel some kind of way, pay attention to that. Is that some old woundedness, that a younger version of yourself that needs some love? Is that a memory that needs to be taken care of? Are you in therapy? Maybe you need to get into therapy, especially if you are recovering from, narcissistic abuse, for sure.
Well,
right?
And this reminds me of our last episode, actually, with Anana. We were talking about spiritual warfare and knowing how to discern what is spiritual warfare and what is exactly what you just talked about, the trauma, the thoughts, those kinds of things, realizing what's what and how to overcome both.
Absolutely.
So refer back to that for some really great, tangible information as well.
Uh-huh.
Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no, you're just fine. So people say, I don't know how to do self-care. I don't know how to love myself.
Right.
And that to me is one of the most sad statements, state of affairs, state of consciousness a person can be in.
I can relate to it.
I can relate
I mean,
to it.
yeah, I mean, it's just day to day. Well, for one, if you're not taught this at a young age, this isn't anything that's been introduced to you in your life, and you've been instead conditioned to be the exact opposite.
Absolutely.
This codependent,
yeah,
pleaser,
sacrifice
anticipator of
yourself
needs
for all others.
Yes, those kinds of things. So it's a complete foreign like concept, and then where do you even start? How do you even begin to figure out what that looks like and afford self-care?
Oh, self-care is easy. Self-care is free, right? I mean, you can go spend a lot of money on self-care, getting your nails done, getting the pedicure, and that's great. That's fine.
But it can
be. But what it truly is and what it needs to be is a culture of self-awareness and self-love.
There you go.
And if it's not loving to you, it's got to go.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I say that a lot. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Amen, sister. Hail to the no. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? I start with 2 words, paying attention. You have to start paying attention to yourself. If someone approaches you and they're asking something of you and your heart says, oh, you get this feeling of dread that wells up and you're like, oh no, I just really don't want to do this. But you're compelled to say yes anyway because you've been trained that you are not supposed to say no. You're not supposed to have boundaries. You're supposed to help anyone who asks for your help. You've got to sacrifice yourself for all others. That's the rule. And so I tell people, if the answer is no, you have the right to say no. Now, if you're approached and they're asking something of you and it feels good, you're excited, you can, catch the wave and see the dream and want to help them accomplish something, then by all means, the answer is yes. But you've got to be in touch with yourself in order to discern those things. And so I tell folks who are recovering from narcissistic abuse, when you can love and trust yourself completely and be connected to yourself, be so into you that you know who you are, that when you meet the next narcissist, the red flags will not just be red flags. They will be siren lights going off in your head. Danger, danger,
Right.
Will Robinson, danger, danger. And you will know that you are in the presence of a narcissist because you can feel it. What you hear from his mouth, if it doesn't match what you feel from his energy, he's lying to you.
So how do we maintain boundaries with a narcissist?
You don't. So here's the deal. Narcissists cannot handle boundaries. They do not want to have anything to do with anyone else's boundaries. Only their own boundaries count. So when it comes to boundaries, what I say to folks is, you hold to your boundaries, your personal boundaries from the get-go in any relationship. And the narcissists will show their true colors because they will reject, they will resist your boundaries and show you who they are.
Right.
And if you say to a narcissist, I see you for who you truly are, you really do them some damage. Yes.
Yeah. One of the worst things you could ever. Be sure that you are in a safe space before you say that.
Yes.
So, okay. So
be prepared to walk away for good. Be prepared to keep yourself safe. Be prepared not to have anything to do with that person again. Because once you say that to them, they know they're totally exposed and it could get dangerous.
Could trigger something really, really terrible.
Yes.
Okay. So, 2 things. I want to talk about creating a safe space, but for somebody that, okay, we're not confident in setting boundaries and holding boundaries yet. How do we've been through a narcissistic abusive relationship, or maybe our whole life we've dealt with it. How do we begin to reframe and trust our own intuition after it's been repeatedly undermined?
And that's the key to the self-care. If you are connected with your heart, you are working at 100% capacity. See, when you are disconnected from yourself, you're working at a 40% capacity because your instincts are 60% of who you are. The part of you that lives on the inside of you is the majority of you. And the rest of you is trying to navigate this, this acoustic world that we live in. And so excuse me, it is really about paying attention to those feelings that crop up. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to discern anything because you're going to stay in a state of fear and a state of confusion. The universe is not of confusion. Get grateful, get self-loving, and all the answers are there, right? So when you are sitting with someone who's lying to you, and you feel, again, it's an incongruence between what you're hearing and what you're feeling, you can't do that unless you're connected with yourself. So it's vital. It's absolutely vital. But when you can fall in love with who you are, when you can drop all judgments of self and others, when you can embrace total self-love, knowing that you are worthy, knowing that you are divine, your energy and your frequency are going to rise. And you're going to start drawing to you the folks who are of like mind,
right,
who are also, into self-care and into learning more and more about self and being connected with self. And when you can trust yourself 100%, then that's when you don't have to trust anyone else if you can trust yourself. So in any given situation, when you're introduced to someone, monitor those instincts. What are your instincts telling you that are different from what you're experiencing from this person?
And bottom line, it's choosing yourself.
Absolutely. Choosing yourself every day.
All about choice.
I mean, who else can do that but you?
Right. Choice as in choosing to let go of the feelings of guilt and shame and responsibility of the abuse. Like there's all the things that we can talk about that are reasons that keep us where we are. But when it comes down to it, it is literally about choice. Now that I know, am I going to choose to step over those challenges, rise above this, do the work, do the things that I need to do to be a healthy person so that I am not susceptible to the gaslighting and the things and that's the self-care that we're talking about.
Yes.
That's how you gain the confidence.
Yes. And with confidence, you will be able to discern the things that you need to discern. You'll be able to know that you're being love bombed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll be able to know when you're being gaslit.
Yeah. It'll feel
And in those
gross
situations, you asked, how do you hold a boundary with a narcissist? You don't. He will walk away or you will walk away, one of the two. You can't hold a boundary with the narcissist. You've just got to stop talking to them.
Right.
Because there is no talking to them.
Right. There's really no making sense with them at all. It's like, I refer to it a lot. It's like trying to talk sense into a drunk. It's just,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's not possible.
And see, everything is perspective. Everyone has their own unique perspective of what it is to be a human on planet Earth. So you have 8 billion different ideas of what is right, what is good, and what people want, right? And so you've got to recognize that what someone else thinks is right may not be your truth, and you've got to find someone who is a match to your energy.
Right. Right. At the end of the day, you're the one that knows. You're the one that knows your body. You're the one that. But honestly, yeah, I think that's almost like an excuse though too for you to tolerate more.
Yeah.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, you know what's right and wrong. You know how you should be treated, whether you want to vocalize your worth or not. Deep down, again, it comes back to a choice. Am I going to choose that I am worthy and be a confident person? Or am I going to choose, sorry, this is probably going to offend some people, but am I going to continue to choose the chaos, the problem, the drama, the whatever it is? And maybe that's because of all the attention that I'm getting from the situation. And I don't know how to cultivate a healthy relationship or healthy relationships in general.
Mm-hmm. And that's because you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. And one reason that women leave an average of 7 times before they can stay gone is because they are addicted to what's familiar.
Yes.
So the chaos, the abuse, the ups and downs, the roller coaster becomes something that your brain is used to. And because it's familiar and you understand it and you know it, you fall back into it because you can't let go of the love you have for that person or that person you thought was there. And so it keeps you in that cycle until you can break out of it.
What about, real quick before we end here, people that grow up with the religious conviction of staying in the relationship and making it work, and again, experience all the things that come with that. I'm just thinking back to my first divorce. Not that I'm not an advocate for divorce. I am an advocate for a healthy relationship, and a healthy relationship with yourself, so that you never get into an unhealthy relationship with someone else. Those kinds of things. But is there anything that you could say specifically to a person that maybe is in a situation that is very toxic and they do need to either get some emergency therapy, couples therapy, whatever? Maybe they don't have the support from the spouse to be able to do that. They are stuck in the situation, maybe financially. There's whatever the reasons are, they can't get out of this situation. Is there anything there? I know for me personally, there were all of those things, but also even more than that, it was the religious pressure of sticking it out, making sure that, that's a commitment before you and before God, before everyone, your divorce is awful, broken families are horrible, all of that stuff that keeps people in abusive relationships longer than anyone ever should. Because ultimately, and that's, my first marriage wasn't abusive physically. There were other things that weren't ideal and things that we didn't see eye to eye on. And, the biggest being the way to spend money, where, anytime you wanted to spend money on having a good time, sure, no questions asked for sure. But, if I needed, basic essentials for her daughter as she was growing up, or, those kind of things, that was always a fight kind of type stuff. But again, just, it was about feeling the conviction of, I've made this decision before God and everyone, and wanting to lead by example, and all of that kind of thing that kept me probably longer in the relationship than any other reason was because of the religious conviction.
Yes.
And not knowing how to
get past it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have people on my caseload that present with religious trauma. And so it is a real thing. And most of the time when I ask folks about their spiritual orientation, they will say that they grew up, religious many times, but they're not religious now. They don't go to church. They find themselves more, spiritual than religious. Or a lot of them say that they're agnostic, and they don't want to, they think that there's something out there, but they don't know what. So this is why it's critical that you have the most important relationship in your life to be you. And really paying attention to your own thoughts and belief systems. By the time a person is 35 years old, their entire personality, which creates your personal reality, is largely based on the lies of other people. And the attitudes of other people and the belief systems of other people that may not be anywhere near in alignment with you.
Right.
So this is why the self-care piece is so critical.
Again, yeah.
To pay attention to those belief systems and change them if they're not serving you.
So it sounds like really next episode needs to be on parenting and how to cultivate this within your children, so that you are not raising codependent kids that are going to get into attracting these types of relationships.
Yes, it's time to break generational curses.